If I sing well, will you give me a meal? The question came from a small, barefoot boy holding a cracked, almost useless guitar. His name was Jason, and at only 9 years old, his voice carried a quiet strength that surprised people who bothered to listen, which almost no one did. They were backstage at the biggest television studio in New York, the home of the show stars of America. Bright lights flashed everywhere. Assistants rushed back and forth with headsets and clipboards. Cameras rolled. People whispered. Dreams were made here and sometimes broken on purpose. The man standing in front of Jason wore an expensive black suit and a watch that looked like it could buy a small car. His name was Raymond, one of the producers of the show. He stared at Jason for a second, then burst into a loud, cold laugh that echoed down the hallway. "Boy, do you really think you're here to win anything?" he scoffed. "You're here so the audience can laugh. That's it." His words stung, but Jason didn't flinch. He gently tightened the loose strings of the broken guitar, the same one he had pulled from a trash bin 3 weeks earlier. It wasn't great, barely tuned, but to him it was treasure. For most of his life, Jason had learned to bow his head when people insulted him. He had learned to quietly accept things, to survive. But today, something different stirred inside him. Something firm, something new, and it whispered, "This is the last time anyone will treat you like garbage." "I understand perfectly, sir," Jason replied calmly. Raymond frowned, uncomfortable with the maturity coming from a child who looked like he barely had anything. 2 hours earlier, Jason had been sleeping under the shade of a small store roof. He had no home, not since his grandmother passed away 3 years earlier. The streets had become his school, his shelter, and his teacher. That morning, he woke to see several production assistants surrounding him with cameras slung around their necks and excitement in their eyes. They had been searching for interesting characters for a special episode of the show. Something emotional, something dramatic, something the crowd would talk about. They heard Jason singing for coins. They saw his dirty clothes, his quiet face, his broken guitar, and instantly, they believed they had found what they wanted. Not a champion, but a joke. "We'll put you last," Raymond had said earlier, flipping through his clipboard. "After the talented kids perform, you'll help balance the show." They expected a disaster. They wanted people to laugh, shake their heads, and say things like, "What is that boy doing here?" What Raymond didn't know was that living on the streets had trained Jason to study people carefully. Their voices, their lies, their eyes, their masks. He could read them better than they could read him. He knew why he was there. He knew the part they wanted him to play. But he also had something they didn't know. Something hidden. In his old backpack, torn, faded, and held together with safety pins, there was a letter. A letter that explained who he truly was, and why stepping onto the stage was not an accident at all. It was destiny. Jason shifted the guitar and looked at Raymond again. "Sir, can I ask something?" "Make it quick," Raymond snapped. "We don't have all day. Do you have kids?" The question caught Raymond off guard. "I do. 2 girls." "Why?" Jason gave a small smile. Soft, innocent. But there was something inside that smile. Something quiet but powerful. And it made Raymond's heart beat faster without knowing why. "Just curious," Jason replied. He stored that information carefully in his mind, adding it to many things he had quietly observed backstage. Voices, reactions, whispers, names. Every detail mattered. As he walked toward the stage entrance, carrying the broken guitar like a priceless instrument, he silently repeated the same promise. "No more letting the world walk over me." Backstage, he watched the other contestants. They were treated like little stars. Assistants hovered around them, offering snacks, bottled drinks, and comforting smiles. Some kids had their parents cheering. Some had brand new microphones. Others practiced warm-ups with professional vocal coaches. He stood there quietly, watching, listening, learning, and then he noticed something else. Trays of gourmet snacks, chilled drinks, and makeup tables lined with bright mirrors as assistants rushed from one talented child to another, making sure every single one of them looked perfect for the camera. "Attention, everyone, The voice cut sharply through the chatter backstage. The man clapped his hands loudly, demanding silence. His name was Raymond Brennan, one of the most powerful producers in New York television, and he carried himself like someone who expected the world to move when he spoke. "Remember," he said, scanning the room full of bright lights, makeup artists, buzzing microphones, and nervous children. "You are the future of American music. Tonight, the entire country will see your talent." The kids around him straightened proudly. Some smiled, some nodded, some held their instruments tighter as if hugging their dreams. Meanwhile, a small boy sat quietly on the cold hallway floor. Jason, 9 years old, barefoot, holding his cracked guitar like it was gold. He didn't clap. He didn't cheer. He simply watched. When he slowly stood up and walked toward the snack table, hunger twisting his stomach, a production assistant stepped in front of him with a tight, practiced smile. "Sorry, sweetie," she said softly. "Snacks are for official contestants only. Are you here with someone?" Jason's voice stayed calm. "Actually, I'm performing too." The woman blinked, checked her clipboard, then forced another smile. "Oh, right. You're the special boy." The word special didn't sound like respect. It sounded like insult dressed in kindness. "You'll perform last," she added. "Very last." Across the room, Raymond never even looked in Jason's direction. Instead, he walked toward the polished group of children gathered like shining trophies. "Listen closely," he said proudly. "You represent the best this country offers. Sing with heart. Show your perfect technique. Make your families proud." A blonde girl, about 12, turned to her father, a wealthy-looking man in a tailored suit. "Dad, why is that boy here?" she whispered, nodding toward Jason. Her father lowered his voice. "Don't worry, princess. He's here only so the difference can be seen. So you shine brighter." Jason heard everything. He didn't cry. He didn't break. He simply felt something deep inside tighten, not wild anger but controlled strength. And then memory rose. 3 years earlier, his grandmother, Di, the only person who looked at him and saw more than dirt and hunger. Her hands had been rough, her smile soft. "Jason," she used to say, "when the world tries to make you small, you stand twice as tall. And when they try to silence you, you sing louder." Di had sung gospel in a tiny Harlem church for over 40 years. But music for her was more than sound. It was survival. It was truth. It was resistance. "They can take everything else," she would whisper, "but they can't take what God placed in your voice." Then she got sick. Too sick. And without money for treatment, Jason found himself alone. On the streets, learning, watching, listening, and training his voice every night when no one could hear. Now, as Raymond strutted through the room, ignoring him completely, Jason closed his eyes for a moment and heard Di again. "Stand, sing, and never beg for permission." "Hey boy!" Raymond's voice snapped him back. "You even know any songs? We don't want to waste television time." Jason strummed softly. "I know a few." Raymond laughed harshly. "What kind of few? Street songs? Something you learned while begging?" A ripple of laughter spread. But Jason just smiled, quiet and steady. "May I ask a question, Mr. Raymond?" Raymond raised a brow. "Go on. Did you study music?" Raymond straightened proudly. "Of course. MBA in Entertainment Management." Jason nodded thoughtfully. "And do you play any instruments?" "I don't need to play to recognize talent," Raymond snapped. Jason's eyes relaxed. "I understand." What Raymond didn't know was this. Inside Jason's battered backpack was a yellowed envelope, written by Di, opened only when he finally felt ready. That letter didn't just explain who he was. It revealed history. It revealed connection. And it revealed strategy. Di had not simply been a church singer. Years ago, she had graduated in music composition, one of the first black women to do so, from the prestigious Juilliard School. And more than that, she had mentored powerful people, including Ben Mitchell, now the CEO of the network producing the show. In the letter, Di had written, "Ben is like a son to me. If life becomes too heavy, go to him, but never for charity. First, show him who you are. Jason carefully slipped the letter back into the backpack, breathing deeply. Even gone, Di was still guiding him. Suddenly, a voice cut the moment. "Hey, street boy!" The blonde contestant walked toward him, several kids following behind. Her name was Ashley. Her smile was sweet. Her words were not. "My dad wants to know how you even got in here. Did you lie on the application?" "I didn't lie," Jason answered simply. Ashley scoffed. "So you think you can compete with us? I've studied at the Manhattan Conservatory for 6 years. I have private teachers who cost more per hour than you probably see in a month." The other kids laughed. But Jason didn't react. He simply tuned the broken guitar slowly, checking each note with a precision that made Ashley's confident smile flicker. He tested the strings again, adjusting them with careful fingers like someone who understood sound in a way they didn't. "Do you even know how to read music?" Another boy mocked. Jason lifted his head slightly. "I know a few things," he said, and for the first time, a small, controlled smile touched his lips. They had no idea. They didn't know that besides the training Di gave him, Jason had spent 3 long years practicing in places none of them could ever imagine. He practiced in subway tunnels with perfect echo, where microphones were useless and only truth in the voice mattered. He practiced under noisy bridges, where trains roared overhead, and he learned to hold pitch steady even when the ground trembled. He practiced on street corners full of car horns, shouting vendors, and rushing people, training his breath, his control, his focus. Every cold night, every hungry day, every condescending look, all of it had unknowingly shaped him for this exact moment. Then, Jason noticed someone watching. An older man, gray hair, gold-rimmed glasses, kind eyes, respectful posture, standing quietly near the stage lights. Their eyes met. Something in the man's expression changed. Surprise, recognition, then emotion. He walked toward Jason, ignoring Ashley and the others completely. "Excuse me," the man said gently. "May I ask your full name?" "Jason Di Williams," the boy answered, deliberately emphasizing the middle name. Silence. The man froze. His throat tightened. His hand trembled slightly against his glasses. "Di Williams," he whispered. His chest tightened as memories rushed forward. Di. The woman who taught him music was bigger than fame. The woman who told him that power without compassion is useless. The woman he loved like family. And now here stood her grandson. "I'm Ben," he finally said, voice shaking. "Ben Mitchell, CEO of the network." Jason nodded quietly. Ben swallowed, guilt pressing deep in his chest. "Where have you been all this time?" "On the streets," Jason answered softly. "Since she died." Ben closed his eyes. If he had known, if he had searched, if he had stayed closer. He swallowed again. "Do you sing like her?" "She taught me everything," Jason replied. "And you came here to audition?" Jason glanced toward the stage, where Raymond stood laughing with other producers, clearly excited about the humiliation they had planned. "I came to show what I'm capable of." Ben understood instantly. Di always believed the greatest answer to prejudice was excellence. "Can I do you a favor?" Ben asked quietly. "Actually," Jason said, voice calm, "I want to ask you one. Anything. Don't interfere." Ben blinked. "What?" "Let them do exactly what they planned," Jason continued. "Every joke, every insult." Ben stiffened. "They will try to embarrass you publicly." "I know," Jason replied simply. "And I want you to record everything. Every word, every face, every reaction." The smile Jason gave him was exactly the same one Di wore whenever she was about to teach someone a lesson they would never forget. "They think they know who I am," he said quietly. "But they have no idea what I carry inside me, or what Di put here." Ben felt something shift in the air. This wasn't arrogance. It was purpose. "And when everything is finished," Jason added softly, "do whatever you believe is right with the recording." Before Ben could answer, Raymond suddenly appeared and cut between them without even recognizing who Ben was. "Hey boy!" he snapped, smirking. Your big comedy show starts now. Let's see if you can at least entertain us." Jason stood. He slid the strap over his shoulder and lifted the broken guitar. Then he turned slightly toward Ben and whispered, "My grandmother always said, God gives talent not just to lift us, but to lift others who will come after us. Today isn't only about me." Ben watched him walk away, and for a brief moment, felt like Di was alive again, walking through that studio, walking toward the fight, refusing to bow. Raymond, meanwhile, organized the cameras. He wasn't thinking about music. He was thinking about ratings. He wanted laughter. He wanted mockery. He wanted a spectacle. And he believed he was about to get one. What he didn't realize was that he had just placed himself in the middle of a lesson that would echo far beyond that building. Ben stepped aside and quietly called his own camera crew. "Record everything," he instructed softly. "Don't miss a second." Because deep inside, he already sensed something historic was about to unfold. The stage light blazed to full brightness. Jason walked to the center and stopped, shoulders straight, face calm. 500 people murmured as they noticed the barefoot boy with the worn guitar. Some smiled, some whispered, some took pictures already expecting failure. Backstage, Raymond leaned toward his assistants. "When she starts, trigger the faulty sound system. Blast static. The audience will think it's his fault. It'll be priceless." Ashley and the other contestants gathered behind the curtains, eager to see humiliation disguised as entertainment. Jason leaned toward the microphone. "Hello," he said gently. "My name is Jason Di Williams. I'm 9 years old, and I want to dedicate this song to my grandmother, the one who taught me that music belongs to everyone." Raymond frowned slightly. That name again. Di. Where had he heard it before? He shook the thought away and signaled the crew. Jason lifted his guitar. The first chord rang out. Clear. Balanced. In tune. Several professional musicians in the audience unconsciously straightened, recognizing discipline and control. Raymond snapped his fingers. The speakers exploded with harsh static. Loud. Ugly. Piercing. People laughed. Cameras zoomed in on Jason's face, expecting panic. "Technical problem," Raymond shouted, fake concerned. "We'll have to stop." But Jason didn't stop. He stepped away from the microphone. He stood taller. Then he began to sing, with nothing but his raw voice filling the room. His voice rose, steady, pure, powerful enough to cut straight through the noise, through the static, through the whispers, through the laughter. Rows of people fell silent. Some pressed their hands against their hearts. Some wiped unexpected tears. It wasn't just talent. It was truth. It was survival turned into sound. Raymond's confidence shattered. "Turn everything off," he yelled. "Cut the broadcast." But it was too late. Ben Mitchell had already given the order. Every camera stayed pointed at the stage. Every microphone remained live. Everything was being broadcast and censored to millions of homes across New York and beyond. Jason finished the final note. And then silence. 3 long, breath-holding seconds where no one even breathed. Then the auditorium exploded. Applause thundered like a storm. People rose to their feet. Some shouted Jason's name. Others cried openly. Even backstage, Ashley and the other contestants stood frozen, unable to make a single joke. They had just witnessed something undeniable. Ben slowly walked onto the stage. He took the microphone, his expression solemn. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice steady but emotional. "My name is Ben Mitchell, executive director of this network, and I need to tell you who this extraordinary child really is." Backstage, Raymond went completely pale. He hadn't realized Ben had been there the entire time. "Jason Di Williams," Ben continued, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder, "is the grandson of Di Williams, one of the greatest gospel composers and singers our country ever produced. A woman who graduated from Juilliard in the 1960s, when a black woman achieving that was nearly impossible. A woman who was my mentor, my teacher, and my friend." The audience gasped. Ben swallowed, voice trembling. "Di died 3 years ago, and I didn't even know she had a grandson living on the streets. Meanwhile, this production brought him here, not to honor him, but to humiliate him. The room darkened with anger. Raymond tried slipping away backstage. But Ben wasn't finished. "Everything was recorded," he said. "Every cruel comment, every planned sabotage, every attempt to turn a child's dignity into a punchline." The cameras turned. They found Raymond, his face slick with sweat, his eyes wide, his mouth opening but no sound coming out. "Raymond Brennan," Ben said firmly, "you're fired, not only from this program, but from this network. And I can promise you, no respectable broadcaster will ever trust someone who thinks humiliating children is entertainment." The crowd erupted boos, shouts, outrage. Security approached. Raymond tried to argue, but his words drowned inside the storm of voices. Ben turned back to the children backstage. "Ashley, all of you, I hope today has taught you never to judge someone by their shoes, their clothes, or where they sleep at night." Ashley lowered her head. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. Several other children cried too, realizing the weight of what they had been part of. Then Ben knelt, face to face with Jason. "On behalf of this company, I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Your grandmother would be so proud, not just of your voice, but of the dignity and courage you showed here tonight." Jason nodded gently. "She always told me," he replied, "that music is our secret weapon, and that the best cure for prejudice is excellence no one can deny." Those words echoed through the hall. The cameras captured them. Millions heard them. Security escorted Raymond out, his dreams collapsing in minutes, destroyed by his own cruelty. As the program credits rolled, the image remained. Jason in Ben's arms, a boy who refused to bow, a truth blazing across the country. Underestimating someone because of their background is always a costly mistake. True talent is born anywhere. It only waits for the right moment to shine. Days after the broadcast, the world reacted. Clips flooded social media. News outlets replayed the footage again and again. The video of Jason singing through sabotage reached more than 50 million views in less than 24 hours, the most shared television moment of the year. And Ben kept his word in an even more impactful way than he had promised. The next morning, Ben Mitchell stood before a wall of cameras. Reporters filled the room. News stations from across New York and beyond pointed microphones forward. Everyone waited. Ben cleared his throat. Behind him, giant screens began playing the backstage footage. Every cruel joke, every mocking laugh, every planned attempt to make Jason look like a joke instead of a human being. "This television network failed an exceptional child," Ben said, steady and firm. "And we will not allow this to ever happen again." The reaction across the country was instant and devastating. Raymond Brennan's career didn't just end. It collapsed in a matter of hours. No broadcaster, production company, or entertainment platform wanted even the smallest connection to someone who thought humiliating a homeless child on national TV was entertainment. His social media flooded with millions of comments condemning him. He packed up what little pride he had left and disappeared to a small town where nobody recognized his face, or wanted to. Meanwhile, the kids who laughed at Jason faced their own consequences. Ashley's wealthy parents, horrified at seeing their daughter mocking a child on television, pulled her out of the elite Manhattan conservatory and enrolled her in a public school. "We want our daughter to understand humility," her father said in an interview, desperately trying to patch the family's damaged image. But the most incredible change wasn't about Raymond or Ashley. It was about Jason. Ben didn't just apologize. He turned the entire disaster into the beginning of something meaningful. He created the Di Williams program, named after Jason's grandmother, offering full music scholarships to talented kids from struggling communities. And Jason? He became the very first student. He received a full scholarship to one of New York's top music schools, and something far more precious, a home. Ben and his wife, Margaret, who had long prayed for a child, formally asked to adopt him. "Di always said music makes family," Ben said on the day the judge approved the adoption. "Jason didn't just need us. We needed him too." 6 months after everything happened, Jason stepped onto the legendary stage at Carnegie Hall. He performed alongside the New York Philharmonic. Millions watched. By the end of the concert, more than $5 million had been raised for the Di Williams program, now supporting hundreds of gifted children who otherwise might have remained unseen. During the performance, Jason lifted his head and dedicated the night to two groups, to Di, and to every child judged by their skin, their shoes, or the streets they come from. The crowd cried openly when he admitted he had once slept outside just miles from the very theater applauding him now. The TV show itself, the one that tried to humiliate him, changed completely. Ben brought in child psychologists, social workers, strict rules, zero tolerance for cruelty. And on the stage where humiliation once stood, golden letters now shone. Talent does not choose birthplace, color, or class. Raymond tried more than once to fix his image. Interviews, tears, excuses, but every apology only reopened wounds. He eventually ended up as a used car salesman, discovering that losing respect is sometimes a price that cannot be refunded. 2 years passed. Jason, now 11, released his first album, Voices from the Street. It shocked everyone when it debuted at #1 and earned a Grammy nomination. At the ceremony, he walked onto the stage with his restored, once broken guitar. He held it up and said, "This guitar taught me something. Strength isn't about what you have. It's about what you create from what you have." Ashley watched from home. She wrote Jason a handwritten letter afterward, apologizing and admitting the experience completely changed the way she saw herself and other people. "You showed me that talent isn't privilege," she wrote. "It's courage." Jason replied. They eventually became friends, proof that growth and sincerity can still heal scars. Ben often reflected on it all. Di always said God uses unexpected people to teach lessons the world refuses to learn, he said. "We didn't rescue Jason. He rescued us." By 13, Jason was dividing his life between advanced musical studies, charity concerts, and work inside the Di Williams program, now helping thousands of young people across the country. He never forgot those streets. He visited shelters often. He listened. He encouraged. He searched for the next child the world overlooked. "My grandmother told me our gifts aren't just ladders for us. They're bridges," he always said. The lesson echoed across New York, across the country, across time. Judging someone by where they stand instead of who they are is always a terrible mistake. Because real talent never asks permission, simply waits. And when the moment comes, it rewrites the rules of a world that keeps trying to shrink extraordinary people into boxes too small for them to fit. And as for Raymond Brennan, he learned the hard way that tearing others down never makes anyone taller. It only exposes how small they already were. If this story of a boy who turned humiliation into triumph touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe. Because stories like Jason's remind us that true victory isn't crushing enemies. It's becoming so extraordinary that they become irrelevant.